Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD television. I'm Steve Lance. Former President Trump was found liable today in a Manhattan federal court. The charges stem from decades ago. Writer E. Jean Carroll alleges that Trump groped her inappropriately in a department store dressing room back in 1996. Trump could not be criminally tried because the statute of limitations has since passed. The jury did, however, award Carroll $5 million in compensatory and punitive damages. Trump was not present in the courtroom throughout the trial. His attorney, Joe Tacopina, described the allegations as both odd and unbelievable. The former president has said that he could not have received a fair trial in Manhattan due to the overwhelming Democratic voting base in the city. As the clock ticks toward default, President Biden sits down with congressional leaders at the White House for a debt ceiling meeting. NTD's Iris Tao has the latest from the White House on whether any progress has been made.
I told congressional leaders that I'm prepared to begin a separate discussion about my budget and the spending priorities, but not under the threat of default.
For the first time in months and just weeks before the U.S. is about to run out of cash and default on its payment, President Biden sits down with congressional leaders at the White House to talk about how to raise the nation's debt ceiling. But House Speaker Kevin McCarthy told us right after the meeting that neither side has really changed their stance. And I also asked him if any progress has been made. Watch.
Do you think any progress has been made through this meeting today?
Well, the progress is made is that we were actually able to meet. So that's a difference in the president's take. For 97 days, he denied the ability for anybody to negotiate.
Republicans are insisting that in order for them to agree to raising the nation's debt ceiling, spending cuts must happen. But the White House is insisting that no spending cuts should be attached as a condition to raise the debt ceiling, and it further criticized Republicans' plan during today's press briefing by saying this.
The House Republican Default on America Act will cut veterans' health care visits, teachers, and school support staffs.
And Democratic leaders in Congress are siding with President Biden, saying this about Republicans' bill on spending cuts.
His bill doesn't have a single Democrat in support, and it gets us nowhere.
But Speaker McCarthy, in addition to blaming President Biden for not holding talks much sooner, also defended Republicans' plan by calling attack from the other side a lie. Watch.
Cutting the veterans is a lie. Where in the bill does it say we cut veterans? All I'm asking is that we spend the amount of money we spent 5 months ago.
And McCarthy says the big four congressional leaders will again meet with President Biden this Friday. But President Biden is also expected to give a speech tomorrow about the debt ceiling and also further criticize Republicans' plan. But also remains to be seen whether Biden would signal any change in his stance and also if anything has changed after today's meeting. Reporting from the White House, Iris Tao, NTD News.
Hi there, Micah. I think it's important to start off.
Will the House GOP unveil a smoking gun on the Biden family's business dealings? Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer says they plan to show bank records that span millions of dollars in multiple countries, tracing back to the president and his family members. NTD's Melina Wisecup reports from Capitol Hill. So, Melina, what can you tell us? What can we expect here?
So Chairman Comer will hold a press conference tomorrow at 9 a.m. where they will give details about their month-long investigation into the Biden family's business dealings. Now, of course, the latest major development here is that the committee has subpoenaed the FBI for a file. They allege that a whistleblower has linked President Biden to a criminal scheme, saying that the Biden family has received money in exchange for policy decisions. Now, they allege that this happened when President Biden was serving as vice president. This oversight committee has spent months digging up bank records, and some of those bank records they have acquired through the power of the subpoena. Chairman Comer says that tomorrow the American people will be able to see those actual bank records. Take a look.
And now we're going to produce an additional 5 Biden family members, more countries, more LLCs, more bank accounts.
Now, this is in addition to the one they have already revealed, that is one transfer for the amount of $1 million from a Chinese energy company through a third party. This is an allegation that President Biden denies. Here's how the president responded to a direct question about this from NTD's White House correspondent, Iris Tao.
Hunter Biden's business associates sent over $1 million to 3 of their family members. Any reaction to that report?
Now, Chairman Comer says that from the documents they have, there's more evidence that President Biden himself is involved. Now, whether or not that's the case, we'll get closer to answering that question tomorrow at that press conference. And it's important to note that Comer has firmly asked the DOJ to postpone any prosecutions for Hunter Biden until tomorrow. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
The federal government is renewing funding for an agency that worked with the Wuhan Institute of Virology. NTD's Arian Pazdar spoke with Dr. Peter McCullough to learn more about the agency's history with the Wuhan lab and what the new funding could be used for.
The National Institute of Health has reactivated a $500,000 federal grant to EcoHealth Alliance. Funding for EcoHealth was halted by the Trump administration in 2020 because the agency worked together with the Wuhan Institute of Virology. That's why, among many others, Republican Congressman Morgan Griffith says it's absolutely reckless that the NIH has renewed a grant for EcoHealth Alliance. EcoHealth previously came under scrutiny for conducting gain-of-function research in Wuhan. In a statement this week, the agency said it's not doing that anymore and instead focusing on bad coronaviruses to understand how, when, and under what conditions they are likely to spill over from bats to other mammals, including humans. However, COVID expert Dr. Peter McCullough tells me people should still question the motivation behind this new study.
I think this research is, in a sense, an extension of a cover-up. I think they're likely to declare that they've proven that there is a natural jump from bats into humanized respiratory epithelial cells in order to cover up the real origins of SARS-CoV-2.
So you think the real origins are in the lab?
No, yeah, Ralph Barrett clearly published that the real origin is the lab, and this effort now is just basically a grant-funded effort to try to cover up the real discovery that was published in 2015.
Due to its past, EcoHealth said it won't conduct this study in China, but in Singapore instead. The agency also says virus or infection experiments will be removed from the research process. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
As the COVID-19 public emergency approaches its end, President Biden lifting some of the vaccine mandates he set in place. Earlier today, he ended the order requiring federal workers to be vaccinated. He's also revoked the vaccine requirement for international air travel. Tucker Carlson's exit from Fox News has shaken up the media landscape as well as the conservative movement. To discuss Tucker Carlson and Fox News, we spoke with Frank Gaffney. Gaffney is the executive chairman and founder of the Center for Security Policy. Frank Gaffney, thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure is mine, as always.
Frank, if I could just get your thoughts, Tucker Carlson and Fox News, obviously everybody knows have parted ways. How does this departure impact the conservative movement in your mind?
I think the most important way, obviously, is denying an important platform, arguably the most important platform that conservatives have had, certainly in the past few years. And it comes at a moment when that's deeply injurious to the effort to wage the war of ideas in which we find ourselves, deeply engaged. I think, candidly, that I didn't always agree with what Tucker was doing on that platform in terms of some specific policy recommendations and ideas. But, the fact that he brought that platform to bear and gave large numbers of thoughtful, informed individuals an opportunity to communicate far beyond the normal reaches of the conservative movement. Losing that is a body blow, I think, in a time where we can hardly afford to have the best ideas that are available diminished in any way. And I think that's what's happening as a result of this. Parting of ways isn't quite accurate, I don't think. It seems as though Tucker is still under some constraints from Fox, at least as best I can tell for the moment. But I hope that will not be the case for very long.
You're absolutely right, Frank, and thank you for setting the record straight on that. And I do want to follow up on that. Fox News ratings seem to be down over 40%. That 8 p.m. time slot over 50%. Like you said, Tucker appears to still be under contract, which means he's being paid, yet he can't work elsewhere. So he's essentially, his voice is silenced. Why would Fox News want to keep paying him but not let him go?
Well, it goes to the question of why did they let him go in the first place, doesn't it? I think if the point was to keep him or others enabled by him from talking about ideas or policies or, you know, the direction of the country, for that matter, in ways that the leadership of Fox, and I think that's not just Rupert Murdoch, obviously, his sons, and I think probably Paul Ryan, an influential member of the board of directors of Fox News Corp, then getting him not only off the air, but off the battlefield is very much in their interest, it appears. And they seem to be willing to pay handsomely for the privilege of keeping him essentially incommunicado. Again, I hope that will not be an arrangement that lasts very long, but to the extent that there may be another explanation for what's going on here, I'm unaware of what that would be. Or certainly unconvinced that it's different than the one I just shared.
Speaking of the battlefield, Frank, I want to kind of pivot a little bit. You've been at the front line of the battle of raising people's awareness as to how dangerous the Chinese Communist Party is. You've written yet another book which is set to be released, The Indictment. What can readers expect to learn from this highly anticipated book that you've written, which will be released on May 9th?
Well, if I can shamelessly flog it, The Indictment and its subtitle is Prosecuting the Chinese Communist Party and Friends for Crimes Against America, China, and the World. And what I think people can hopefully glean from this is not just really the contents of this book, but the wellspring from which it grew, which is some 70-odd hour-plus long webinars that our Committee on the Present Danger China has conducted over the past 10 or 11 months, aimed at addressing basically two surpassingly important questions. One is, what is the nature of the, well, they call it unrestricted warfare the Chinese Communist Party has been engaged in against America for decades now? What kind of damage has it done to us? What is the toll that has been taken as a result? And not least, what can we do about it?
Frank Gaffney's fascinating new book, The Indictment, available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Target, Books A Million, and other places where books are sold. Frank Gaffney, thank you so much for joining us.
The pleasure's mine. Thank you for your help in bringing attention to this important book. God bless you.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.